Hello, everyone. I'm Keith Mathis with the Mathis Group. We are a premier ATP with Project Management Institute. Welcome to 7 Minutes to PMP Mastery. This short video takes a part of the exam content and breaks it down and gives you a little video on what to look for that section on the PMP test. Today, we're going to be talking about understanding risk and issues on the exam. So, risk definition. As you look at risk, you know that risk is an uncertain event or condition that may affect project objectives if it occurs. The risk language that you hear a lot of times on the test, it could be something like may happen, could happen, might delay, potential impact if this occurs. All of those have that sound of question involved in it. So there's a chance that the vendor may deliver the equipment late. When you hear those kind of things, that's more of a risk because it's unknown. You don't know for sure that they're going to be late, but you think that they could be late. What should the project manager do? The project manager should usually, when you have a risk, identify the risk, analyze the probability and impact if you've not already done that, add it to the risk register, plan a response, assign a risk owner, monitor risk triggers. So you notice how structured this is for this particular section. Risk seems to have a lot more details on the test over on the traditional side or plan-driven than it does typically on agile or on change-driven. Issue is totally different, though. An issue is a current problem, condition, conflict, defect, blocker, or event that is already affecting the project. So an issue is typically going to be something current. So they love playing games with this of what's a risk and what's an issue. And a lot of times they're combined in the question to see if you can catch and pick out which is an issue and which is a risk. Issue language would be something like, an issue language sounds like this. Something has happened, something is delayed, the team cannot proceed, a defect was found, the stakeholder rejected the deliverable, the vendor missed the delivery date. Notice how emphatic each of these are that's actually happening. So an example would be the vendor failed to deliver the equipment on the scheduled date, or that is now an issue because the uncertain event has actually occurred. So let me recap this just for a moment real quick here, even though I've got a lot to give you, is that an issue is current, a risk is going to be in the future. The project manager should usually record the issue in the issue log, assess the impact on scope, schedule, cost, quality, risk, stakeholders, collaborate with the right stakeholders, determine the right corrective action, escalate only when needed, and track the issue until closure. So let me mention something about this escalation here. You don't escalate every risk to someone else. Remember, the project manager typically on the test has power, and so you're not going to escalate unless this risk is going to impact something far bigger than what your project is, such as a program or the organization. The exam mindset. So what PMI wants you to do, for PMP questions, do not jump straight to panic, blame, escalation, or change requests. PMI usually wants the project manager to act in a disciplined, collaborative type of manner. The PMP exam rule number 1 would be determine whether it's a risk or an issue, and then ask, has it happened yet? If no, then treat it as a risk. If yes, then treat it like an issue. And so issue is going to go to the issue log, a risk is going to go to the risk register. And so that you're going to separate those two right there in documentation. Exam rule also, use the correct project artifact. For a risk, use the risk register, risk report, risk management plan, risk response plan, contingency reserve if applicable. And one other thing on risk that I'm not really emphasizing on this part is that also with risk, you have the threat side and the opportunity side. That might be a little different for you. I've talked about that on other videos though. And so you do have opportunities that you're going to want to do some of these things with as well. You want to have happen on your project. Also, a rule for an issue would be use the issue log, a change log if a change is approved, a lessons learned register, a stakeholder engagement plan, a communication management plan. All of these, you are communicating steps of action to deal with that issue. One other thing is that if the risk actually happens, it's now going to be tracked as an issue because it's now current, not futuristic. Exam rule, do not automatically submit a change request. That's an important piece. Very tricky question. So a change request is not always the first step. First, the project manager should usually understand the situation, assess the impact, review existing plans, work with the team or stakeholders, determine whether the issue can be resolved within current baselines, submit a change request when the resolution affects an approved baseline such as scope, schedule, cost, or quality. And so that's an important piece. So if this is going to impact one of our baselines, then typically the trigger for that is that you're going to then turn around and do a change request. Also, escalation is not always the first answer on the PMP exam. For an example, the project manager lacks authority, or the issue exceeds tolerance thresholds, or the sponsor or governance board must decide. The issue threatens business value or strategic alignment. The team cannot resolve it at this level. So avoid answers that say immediately escalate to the sponsor unless the question shows that the escalation is absolutely necessary because that's the level that the question has given you of the decision makers for that. So don't automatically escalate. So what do you do with predictive projects? So this is going to be your traditional waterfall project. So issues are usually managed through formal controls. So the project manager should do certain things. So they would log the issue, analyze impact, determine corrective action, review the project management plan, submit a change request if baselines are affected, use the change control process, communicate with effective stakeholders. Those are going to be pretty common. What do you do if it's an agile project? Issues are usually handled more collaboratively and visibly because the agile leader or the scrum master or the project owner is going to be talking to the team. So they're not going to call that shot themselves. So that typically you're going to make the impediment visible, work with the team to remove the blockers, discuss the issue in daily stand-ups or team meetings, reprioritize the backlog with the product owner if needed, protect the team's ability to deliver value, escalate organizational impediments when the team cannot resolve them. And then agile projects emphasize transparency, collaboration, fast feedback, value delivery. And so I'll look for those answers that's going to support all of these components. So question 1, a project team is implementing a new customer relationship management system. During user acceptance testing, several critical defects are discovered that prevent the sales team from completing required workflows. The defects were previously identified as a possible risk, but they have now occurred. The project sponsor is concerned about the go-live date. What should the project manager do first? Now, sometimes they'll say, what would you do first? Of course, remember, they're never asking you what you would really do. So submit a change request to extend the project schedule, record the problem in the issue log, assess the impact, and work with the relevant stakeholders to determine the best corrective action, escalate the problem immediately to the steering committee and ask them to decide what to do, update the risk register, and continue monitoring the risk. So you can read this and kind of feel what makes sense. All these escalations are typically not what you're wanting to do because you and your team, or at least you, depending on the particular question, are going to have to make that decision. So here's the right answer. So your right answer here is B. The risk has now occurred, so is no longer only a risk, it's an issue. The project manager should record it in the issue log, assess the impact, collaborate with the right stakeholders to determine the best corrective action. So why are the others wrong? So A submits a change request to extend the project schedule. This may eventually be necessary, but it is premature at this stage. So it's not a wrong answer, it's just not right now. So the project manager first needs to assess the impact and determine whether the issue can be resolved without changing the approved baseline. C, escalate the problem immediately to the steering committee. Escalation may be appropriate if the issue exceeds the project manager's authority or tolerance threshold. However, the question does not yet show that escalation is required. PMP questions usually expect the project manager to analyze, collaborate before ever escalating. So escalation might happen, but it's on down the line. And then D, update the risk register and continue monitoring the risk. This is incorrect because the risk has already occurred. Once it occurs, it becomes an issue and should be managed through issue resolution, not merely risk monitoring. Let's go to the second question. A project manager is leading a construction project. The team learns that a key material supplier may experience production delays because of labor shortages. The supplier has not missed any deliveries yet, but the delay could affect the project's critical path if it occurs. What should the project manager do first? A, add the event to the issue log and assign it to the procurement manager for resolution. B, submit a change request to extend the project completion date. C, record the event in the risk register, analyze its probability and impact, and plan an appropriate risk response. Or D, escalate the matter to the project sponsor and ask for additional budget. Did you feel the difference here? So here's your answers. So the correct answer here is C. The supplier delay has not happened yet, so this is a risk, not an issue. The project manager should document it in the risk register, analyze probability, impact, and develop a response strategy. Why are the others wrong? Well, A adds the event to the issue log and assigns it to the procurement manager for resolution. This treats the situation as if it's already happened, and since the supplier has not missed a delivery date, it is still uncertain and could be managed as a risk. B, submit a change request to extend the project completion date. This is way premature. The schedule has not been affected yet, and a change request may be needed later if the risk occurs and affects the baseline, but not now. And D, escalate the matter to the sponsor, ask for additional budget. This is also premature. The project manager should first analyze the risk and plan a response. Escalation may be needed later if the risk exposure exceeds thresholds and requires a sponsor level type of action. All right, so as we bring this one to closure, I know it's a touch long than compared to some of the others, but I thought this was some important information for you. So we do virtual PMP boot camps every other month, and I'd love to have you in a PMP exam prep boot camp. And so you can look on our website and see when the next one's coming up. I look forward to seeing you in a boot camp, okay? God bless you. You have a wonderful day. Bye now.